to the party like you were walking onto a yacht. Your hat strategically dipped below one eye. Your scarf, it was apricot. You had one eye in the mirror as you watched yourself go out. And all the girls dreamed that they'd be your partner. They'd be your partner. And you're so vain. You probably think this song is about you. You're so vain. You're so vain. I'll bet you think this song is about you. Don't you? Don't you? Oh, you had me several years ago when I was still quite naive. When you said that we made such a pretty pair and that you would never leave. But you gave away the things you loved, and one of them was me. I had some dreams, they were clouds in my coffee, clouds in my coffee. And you're so vain. You probably think this song is about you. You're so vain. I'll bet you think this song is about you. Don't you? Don't you? Don't you? They were clouds in my coffee, clouds in my coffee, and you're so vain. You probably think this song is about you. You're so vain. I'll bet you think this song is about you. Don't you? Don't you? When I hear you went up to Saratoga and your horse naturally won, then you flew your Learjet up to Nova Scotia to see the total eclipse of the sun. Well, you're where you should be all the time, and when you're not, you're with some underworld spy or the wife of a close friend, wife of a close friend. And you're so vain. You probably think this song is about you. You're so vain. I'll bet you think this song is about you. Don't you? Don't you? Don't you? You're so vain. You probably think this song is about you. You're so vain.
It's Edge Radio Australia. How you doing, Maloya on the couch with the amazing Derek Whittaker, mate? Good to see you here for the Greater Wealth. Well, you see, I didn't turn your mic on, mate. You jumped the gun, okay, again. But I'm not going to blame you. I'm going to blame me because of my natural compulsion to keep the mic off for as long as possible because Mr. Carter's over there. I do it on purpose. We all know we do it on purpose because he says something just completely ridiculous and irrelevant every single show. So I appreciate that, mate. You're now
I'm trying to think of a way to counter that, but it's kind of true.
It's 100% fact. So, mate, you're now on. I do apologise. As I say, it's my precaution. I understand.
It's okay. I thought I was being censored on Edge Radio.
Oh, we don't. Hey.
We've started a movement. Hey, Aaron, we've started a movement. Free Trav.
Free Trav.
Hashtag Free Trav.
Oh,
Free
no.
the Beast.
Well, we do have some fantastic presenters here with the last name Tran, so they are our trans people. So I suppose we're covering. Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Oh,
The
Paul and
adventure
Anna
couple,
from
yeah,
the Explore couple.
Exactly.
I still can't believe they had over 10,000 views on that first video they did here.
Very
That's
cool.
monstrously.
I
well
didn't
done.
even know that myself. So there you go. Last
Didn't
time
you
I
know? That shows how much you're paying attention to our broadcasters.
I'm a
Aaron.
little bit busy. You've got other things on, mate. Not like you, man of leisure. Anyway, forget about the leisure. We're here to talk about a greater wealth, finding your life's purpose and funding it was always a good thing. And lots to talk about. You've got the old computer there. You ready to rock and roll?
I'm go.
Let's go.
We've got some interesting. I got a study coming up later in the show today that is really relevant to everybody who either has a job or runs a business.
Okay, well, so that's most people.
That would be most people. That covers most people. So that's coming up a little bit later, and we've got a little bit of a competition happening today too, which is exciting.
We do. I'm looking forward to this. I had a little promo for that on Facebook not long ago. We are giving stuff away. I'm feeling like Santa. Don't make any jokes about my belly, but I am actually.
You need a bigger beard.
I do. I don't want to commit to a big beard.
If Phil Santa, is he a little elf or is he Mrs. Claus?
Both are disturbing.
No, I'm Rudolph.
Oh no, mate!
I don't know what is it. Hang on. There's a kid's book.
No, mate, because your nose ain't red. It's a different color altogether. But there you go.
There's a book that my daughter reads. It's one of the reindeers. Like they all get tired, so this guy eats heaps of beans and he just farts from like country to country. So that's how Santa gets around.
So it took about 2 minutes for you to go to fart humor. Thanks, Travis. Quality broadcasting right there. All right. Now we do have some stuff, as I say, some really awesome giveaways coming up later in the show, but you're going to have to watch. You're going to have to sit through this. Well, him anyway. This is good information. And let's jump into another subject before we talk about that.
I want to just talk about something that's really taking the headlines recently, and it's the Bank of England stepping in. If you've been watching the currencies at all or traveling overseas or you have relatives in England, you may have noticed that the British pound was absolutely taking a hammering in terms of its value, and things are getting very, very rocky. And what's been interesting is seeing that the Bank of England has had to actually step in and go, hang on a second, we want to try to stabilize this. Okay. They've pulled a different lever. The Federal Reserve has been going, we're going to increase interest rates in America to stop inflation, this sort of stuff. Well, the Bank of England's gone the old US trick and gone, we're going to basically print money. But they haven't called it printing money. They're going to, what they're going to do is we're going to buy gilts. Now they don't call it in England, they did call it bonds because it's just associated with the 007 variety. We don't want to mix our bonds at all. No. So it's more the old traditional thing of gilts. Right?
Okay.
So what they do, for those who don't know what that means, is basically how you get cash in your hand is that the government produces these IOUs, we generally call them bonds, and they sell them. And then people buy bonds, investors buy bonds to get a return later on. But those bonds is what the central bank actually buys to then in exchange to print money.
Right.
And so that's how the British pound comes about. Or in Australia, our Australian dollar comes about.
Sure.
So what's been happening is they're basically saying, we're going to print more money. And what that is going to do is it's going to reduce the amount of interest that the government has to pay on its debts. In other words, what they're doing is deflating the pound without saying that, okay? Because if you can reduce it, right, you're still paying the amount, but it's not worth as much as it was previously.
I heard, funny enough, I'm watching the Formula One, bit obsessed with cars, as we all know, and they were saying the issue at the moment is the American dollar and the pound are kind of 1 for 1 at the moment. And that kind of blows my mind.
Yeah. And you look at what England's had an interesting run of it because, look at what they're facing economically. They've come out of the EU recently, which was huge. And in my opinion, that was one of the best things they did.
Absolutely.
Right?
No doubt about it.
Brexit. The second thing they're doing is they're scrambling to get international trading partners now to make sure that's going on. Then they hit with this little battle going on in the Ukraine and Russia. And
skirmish. No one's talking
this skirmish, which more on the front of, hey, what are we going to do about energy because of the ridiculous climate change? Sorry, I'm getting opinionated, but the climate change agenda is we want to rule out fossil fuels in the United States. Of course, they're not getting oil like they used to because Russia's not putting it on and in terms of sending the oil. And they're also not getting the whole the gas shortage is a big concern too, because they've turned it off at the pipe back in Russia, which supplies most of energy to Europe. You might want to think about that before
Why can't they use wind power and solar and hopes and dreams for their energy?
Hopes and dreams work beautifully, as we all know, right? Okay, that's what the current American economic platform is, right? It's hopes and dreams.
And they've also had a very expensive funeral lately in England as well.
I heard that was crazy expensive.
I don't know what the expense was, but that was not cheap.
No,
getting
wouldn't
everybody to get in the regalia and march through the streets. No
Right.
disrespect to what they were honouring,
No,
but
of
you know,
course.
but
I
that was not
heard-
cheap.
I've heard in the hundreds of millions of dollars.
And they just had the
Oh, sorry,
Commonwealth Games as
pounds.
well.
Yeah, okay.
England
Okay.
has also had the Commonwealth Games. All these things are very expensive items.
Yeah, absolutely. I look. I don't know. I mean, when it comes to what's going on, and we've obviously got the European situation with the power coming in from Ukraine and the pipeline and stuff like that. I mean, I heard Jordan Peterson talking about this recently, and then the fact of the absolute ability to effectively close down and close the economy of Germany. Now, obviously, that would have a massive, massive flow on. Now, would that affect the UK pound? How would that sort of, how does that all work?
To shut down the economy of Germany,
Yeah,
that's going to affect the EU because they're still in that.
yeah. Okay.
And so England is a little bit sheltered being outside the EU. It's more of a case of, I was speaking to actually one of my contacts in Liechtenstein the other week,
Right.
and I said to him, listen, is this really happening or is it just media hype
Yeah.
in terms of what's going on? He said, no, it's real. He said, this energy crisis is putting a lot of businesses to the line where they're wondering whether they can keep operating because their electrical bill, their energy bills have just gone through the roof.
Crazy.
To
Yeah,
just
yeah,
try to keep the lights on.
I've also heard that they're anticipating they're going to have rolling blackouts. So
Yeah.
we've just seen what's happened in China as well, what's happened with the rolling
Hmm.
blackouts, how much that's affected their economy. And we're going to see the same thing in Europe. But the difference is in China, you don't freeze to death where they're coming into their winter now.
Mm.
Is this going to actually directly result in deaths due to poor management of the economy?
I think what will happen is that if there isn't government intervention in this, that people will rise up. I hear they're already chopping a lot of forests in
I heard
Germany.
that, I heard that.
And the irony is the climate changers are trying to save the environment by not putting in the gas and all that. And all right, fine, we've got to hit
Go
ourselves.
cut down all the trees.
We'll go cut down all the forests. It's just catch 22.
People have a right and a need to keep warm. It's as
Yes.
simple as that.
No, they need to live.
Yes, right.
Survive.
Well, yeah,
I don't
exactly
think
right.
people understand like it's that cold that you will freeze to death in your house over there.
It gets to minus 20 degrees. Okay.
Yeah.
We don't know this.
I
in
can't even
Australia.
contemplate that. Yeah.
In
That's colder than your freezer. Like, I think that's -5 or something.
It's cold.
Oh, wow. That's a good way of thinking about it. Exactly.
So
You couldn't survive living in your freezer, let's face it, right? So they've got to keep themselves warm and
And
keeping
it
those
is-
energy prices, people talk about economies and they talk about politics and everybody, and it doesn't affect my everyday life. Keeping warm and keeping alive, that is your everyday life,
Mhm.
right? This is really
That's-
related. It's crazy.
and this is one of the things I find really, really frustrating because everyone complains, oh, I'm not into politics, I'm not into all that sort of crap. But you got to remember that the rules and base on which we do our finance, the way we live, the way we send our kids to school and all that is 100% determined by politics. So
Exactly.
I remember in one of
And
Derek's
economics.
early shows,
Yeah.
he said there was 3 things that affect the financial markets and politics was one of them. So you've got to start taking attention to it. And even in Italy, they just had an election over there as well. So
and what
they've
a
gone-
absolutely amazing win. I don't know
Yeah.
her name, but the new it's Prime Minister over there, isn't it?
I'm not sure,
Yeah,
but
whatever
I've
the term being. Yeah.
just found out about it today. So I'm going to do a
Italy?
bit of research.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
they've
yeah.
just gone full no,
Yep.
we are not doing this. And then they've just totally changed the government.
Love it. Absolutely. love it.
Seeing what comes from that's going to be very, very interesting.
And
So that might be for next week.
Isn't it interesting seeing that the mainstream media who are trashing the hell out of the current leader of Italy, they have gone after her because she's talking common sense and not talking this ridiculous narrative.
They're afraid that this narrative will spread.
Yeah, we can't have that now.
And it's really funny because Italy was a home of Marxism.
Yeah, good point.
And so like
Where's Mussolini when you need him, right?
so
Come on.
this gives me great confidence moving forward that there's going to be some level-headed like trying to pull us out of this because to be honest with you, I think especially in Europe at the moment with King Charles taking over with all his connections to all the global warming faction, like I cannot see any common sense policies coming out of England in the short term. I'm generally concerned that this is going to blow up.
Look, I want to pull you up on that. You said global warming, and that's that.
Sorry.
No.
I used the wrong buzzword, the climate
No,
change.
that's my point. My point is, okay, now global warming is what they called it for a very long time. Okay, and we had acid rain in the 80s, and we had what's the great
Ice Age
winter.
was something in the 70s.
The great winter. I think it was a great winter we were going to have in the 70s. Also, Ice Age, whatever it was. It's just another bloody rebrand.
It's a buzzword.
This is a rebrand to make money. This is not. I'm not saying that. I mean, I'm a guy who cares about the environment, whatever, and you want to do that. But at the end of the day, we need to keep people alive.
I think what has been the problem with the climate change debate is, I mean, how much carbon is actually out there, right?
I'm carbon, you're carbon.
How
but
much?
Okay.
But how much of it is actually hitting the planet, according to their things? How much has the planet actually raised? I mean, I heard a report recently that a leaked document from the United Nations revealed that the planet hasn't changed its temperature in the last 15 years, right? So, you're going to say, well, we're going to reduce carbon. How much carbon are you going to reduce it by? What are your measurables? I mean, you want to talk science, show us the numbers. Has anyone ever come across a report with those numbers and shown those numbers? Or has it just been
I got to put my
activism?
politics hat on here. Malcolm Roberts, One Nation senator, I think he's up to nearly 600 days now, has been offering to debate the Greens on all the facts and figures, and they continuously refuse to go into the debate, and they refuse to give him the facts and figures.
Yeah, well, facts don't care about your feelings, right?
Anyway, on this one, comment from Josh. If we are on the topic of European energy prices, maybe the Nord Stream sabotage is relevant. Biden blowing up the gas pipeline is going to kill people in Eastern Europe.
Damn good point, quite frankly. Yeah, who said that?
That's Josh.
Josh,
So
mate,
that's
good
on the
point.
good old
Very good
stalk
point.
book.
Yeah.
By the way, that's on my Facebook, not yours.
I think what we're going to see is a lot of revealings in the next few months, weeks, in fact, of what's actually going on. I'm really expectant, really excited, because the truth is coming out. You cannot keep it down for so long. We're seeing interesting reports coming out of England at the moment in terms of the effects of the vaccines and the damage. It's terrible, the vaccine damage that's happening to people's lives and their health. The fertility rates, what's happening to children, it's just astounding. And the mainstream media don't want that to come out. They don't want, but people, when they see their relatives passing away and being damaged, it has to come out.
When the injections were rushed to market, okay, you know what? The drug that stuck in my mind, thalidomide. Okay, that great drug that was there to help women with morning sickness and so forth in the 60s and 70s, and the absolutely terrible things that did, because it was rushed to market. And it was actually found out later that it had a few shortcuts, okay, and a few people may have had slightly
bigger bank accounts.
It was terrible.
So another comment here from Phil, the Great Ice Age scare I grew up with.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So because I know Phil, he's a little bit mature.
Yep. Okay. Good on
like
Phil.
A good old cheese.
Yep.
Yeah, he's older than both of you guys. Younger than our in-house audience today. So.
We do. Yes, we've got a live audience today.
Yeah, we should start doing that, like doing the genuine live audience.
Well,
invite people into the studio.
saying this wonderful gentleman here is not genuine? He's very genuine.
No. Like, remember back like Hey It's Saturday Days and all that sort of stuff that actually have a live audience?
Yeah. Okay. You will clearly be Aussie Ostrich, but never mind. Right? Okay.
No. I'm Vicky Nee.
Now back to finance.
Bank of England wants to spend between 65 billion to £5 billion a day buying these UK bonds until mid-October. So that's a couple of weeks worth of printing money, basically, in terms of the bond market. So that's kind of gives you how much cash they want to inject into the economy. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to that British pound, whether it goes, it softens in terms of it. And of course, what people don't realize is, well, why is that a big deal? Obviously, if you're traveling internationally, you get more, you can buy more pounds, etc. But it's mostly the import-export markets that really are affected by this. So if you're exporting goods, if the pound is getting weaker and you're in England and an exporter, that's good for you, because it's more affordable to other people who have different foreign currency. If it's going up, the British pound, that's bad for you if you're exporting, and it's vice versa if you're an importer. If you're importing from overseas, if it weakens, you have to spend a bit more to buy what you normally would. Yeah. So those fluctuations have a big effect on business, and the flow-on effect of terms of how much the consumer will actually spend.
That's exactly right. So it's a flow-on effect.
Let's throw this over to a mum and dad investor. Like they've got a spare couple of grand in their back pocket that they want to invest in something, knowing that the pound is so weak. Obviously, I've got to try and stay away from personal advice here. So the common term I hear a lot is invest the dip, like buy when the market's low, obviously sell when the market's high. That's the basis of all trading. So do you think Britain and the British economy is strong enough to weather this storm?
I think people want to do business with England. And I think that's what we'll get it through because people like England. It's pretty
Yeah.
user friendly in relation to its cultural relations. Put all that colonialism stuff aside. Look at England today. It's still a powerhouse in terms of the economy, and that's why we're talking about it. That's why it's having such a big effect on the markets now. So I think the British people, they're innovative enough to get out of this. They're smart. They'll as they, they've had a big move coming out of the EU. And it's that's going to take a while to stabilise and get some momentum and all that.
Well, look at the positives that came out of it for Australia. I mean, we've re-established ourselves with a trading partner there. That a lot of those sales have been lost with the UK, and
especially after the Lima Declaration.
Spot on. And one of the there was a lot of negatives, but that was a positive thing that came out of the last Prime Minister we had in this country. He actually made those deals happen when Brexit came through. So,
and the other one, the free trade arrangement with potentially one of the competitors for the next great empire is India. We now have a trade arrangement with them. So I have to say, out of everything that he's did, I think that trade agreement with India is probably one of the better things that he's done.
Thoroughly agree. I mean,
not many highlights in his reign. But,
no.
At least he did make some pretty good international relationships.
Their middle class is growing, at a great rate. It would be nice, obviously, if we can take the whole country with them, because there's so much poverty there. But it's a very positive thing, and certainly a partner that we need to encourage. Yeah.
Especially considering it's your neck of the woods.
That's right. That's my family. It's my background. So absolutely. Yeah.
Surprised you haven't tried to wholesale this radio station yet.
Hilarious. Well, we're going to go to a break. So we'll talk about something else after the break. I'll just walk on away from that. Look, closing sort of thoughts, mate, as far as this subject goes before we go to the break.
Look, the markets are scared. And anything that like this, where a central bank rises up and does something like that, spooks them. So just keep it in the framework of what it is and why it's making such big headlines. A lot of people, a lot of investors are very nervous in terms of how fragile the markets are right now.
The other thing I find very interesting about this one, wasn't it a couple of weeks the Vatican called in all their loans as well? So it's kind of interesting. The Vatican says do this, and all of a sudden we get countries doing something else.
Interesting.
Very similar.
There's a lot going on.
So true. We'll be back very, very soon. It's edgeradioaustralia.com.
I've been laid up from work, my rent is due. My kids all need brand new shoes. So I went to the bank to see what they could do. They said, son, look like that love got a hold on you, but it's too tight to mention. I can't give an unemployment extension, but it's too tight to mention. I went to my brother to see what he could do. Said, brother, I'd like to help you, but I'm unable to. So I called on my father, almighty father. Said, but it's too tight to mention. Oh, money. But it's too tight to mention. I can't even qualify for my pension. We're talking about Reaganomics. Oh, Lord, down in the Congress. They're passing all kinds of bills from down on Capitol Hill. We tried it, money too tight to mention. Like that. Money too tight to mention. Oh, money. We're talking about 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 the dollar bill and that old man that's over the hill. Now what do we all mention. Oh, money, money, money. Money too tight to mention. You never money. Oh, I'm talking about money, money. 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 Yeah, I'm talking about. I'm talking about running around. I'm talking about running around. I'm talking about running around. Did the earth move for you, Nancy? 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 Yeah, I'm talking Nancy. 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 Yeah, I'm talking about her. Yeah, you were young and your heart was an open book. You used to say, live and let live. You know you did, you know you did, you know you did. But if this ever-changing world in which we live in makes you give in a cry, say live and let die. Live and let die. Live and let die. Live and let die. What does it matter to you? When you got a job to do, you got to do it well. You got to give the other fella a hand. You used to say, live and let live. You know you did, you know you did, you know you did. But if this ever-changing world in which we live in makes you give in a cry, say live and let die. Live and let die. Live and let die. Live and let die.
Age Radio Australia, how you doing? It is the Creative Wealth. We've got Travis Cutter over there, Derek Whittaker to my left, mate. We're talking about how to create your, give you the tools to get your little life purpose going.
Too many people are working to just pay the bills, and it's really about your life purpose.
Certainly
how do you
is.
do that, how to fund your life purpose, and also how to fund your life purpose and do it like the wealthy do it.
Yeah.
the wealthy do it.
Let's do it the way the wealthy do it, because clearly the way I'm doing it,
with
not so
corruption, corruption and bribery.
okay. Can we do it with some ethics and integrity? That'd be nice too. Yeah.
Well, we're going to be giving that broadcast away. We did a private broadcast for a select group of people
We did?
a couple of weeks ago. And
bloody good.
if you want to have access to that, we're going to be giving the details on how to do that. It's worth $47 and we're giving it away free today. So
Why are you telling people this? I was going to wait till later. Jeez.
well, we're not doing it right this second.
okay,
we'll do it a
okay.
bit later.
Sounds good.
They
Sounds
need
good.
a
This is
reason.
the hook to keep them watching and hitting that like and share button.
Like and share. Okay. Travis, explain what people need to do to enter.
Have we actually decided that yet?
We
I
have.
am so
Yes,
professional,
absolutely.
mate.
Like
No,
and
so
share,
people
yes.
have to jump on to the Edge Radio Australia or whatever platform they're listening to this through, whether it's Twitch, whether it's Facebook, whether it's YouTube. I think there's more, but I can't remember.
There are
them.
heaps here. They're all over the place.
And hit the like, subscribe, follow, or whatever the platform has,
Yep.
and chuck a comment and saying how great the show was.
Well, or you could tell the truth and what you really thought about the show. But we do
We
need
actually
you to,
generally do want to know what their people are enjoying,
yeah, for
what
sure.
they're not
But
enjoying.
also really need you to share. Now, the big thing that we're doing here with Edge Radio Australia is we are promoting freedom of speech. Obviously, today's a show about finance and creating your own personal wealth or freedoms, but freedom is the bottom line here. So we have a platform here and we need to promote it. We need to get it out there to the rest of the world because we're not interested in doing what the mainstream media want us to do as far as selling a narrative. We want
to tell the truth.
the truth, the left, the right, the top, the bottom, the black, the white. We want your opinions.
What about the purples?
See, I've left the purples out. I'm so sorry,
You,
purples.
you discriminate. You color discriminator, and you've even got purple flowers on your shirt.
We had a question come in during
We
the music part.
So what I'll
was it?
do, so people can actually see the question as well, is from Phil.
Mhm.
So for the ones playing online, it is actually across the screen. So it is from Phil. Derek, what do you think of Liz Truss tax cuts? Must be doing stuff right if BBC are going after her.
What's happened is basically, that got the it raises a good part of the narrative there on that issue, what the central banks are doing. So they were concerned that the tax cuts weren't going to, that was affecting the British pound in terms of destabilizing it. What you've got to understand is that when the central banks issue currency, the government goes, we want more currency. So they issue bonds, right? Or IOUs, basically. The central banks then go print that money. Here you go. And basically the population, the tax-paying population is guarantors for getting paid, right? So
Gotcha.
your ability to pay your taxes is what they're banking on. So the central banks go, right, well, we know we can get paid.
Yeah.
So that's how it kind of works. So if the government comes out and says, hey, we're going to give tax cuts.
Yep.
They get a bit nervous, right? Like, okay, how are you going to pay this back now? And this is what was bringing in a little bit of a bumpiness in terms of the British pound as well. So when the government says, and they need to do that to stimulate their economy, right? At this time, they want to give tax cuts so that there's more money in circulation.
Sure.
That consumers are buying and spending, etc., to stimulate the economy and get it through this period. Sorry.
I have to say, it's a really interesting contrast to the way the British are printing money versus how the US are printing money. So the US is just going out printing, whatever, don't care. Where the British goes, you know what, let's do a tax cut to devalue the currency to be able to create effectively more money in the market.
Well, the Americans tried that as well. What they do is when they're reducing what the dollar or the pound can buy, they still have the same amount of debt, right? So it doesn't take as much wealth to pay that down as quick. They can pay it down quicker.
Okay.
And that's what they're doing in a sense is paying it back by devaluing the currency.
Yeah.
It's a clever little economic play that they do when they play that card.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's interesting the difference in the thought patterns between America and Britain. I
Well,
thought that
Americans
was
have
quite
already
interesting.
printed so much during COVID.
They
They
don't have a
were ahead
choice.
of the game. They were just print.
Yeah. The amount of memes of the Treasury doing going,
Whereas Britain was more, how do we get out of this EU and take control of our own currency again?
Which they needed to do. Let's face it. Yeah, absolutely.
So it was played a little bit differently there.
Okay, interesting. Now, thanks for the questions. Keep them coming on in. So, okay, let's delve back in. We had some others.
There was a big news story that came out with the whole Optus thing this week with
In Australia.
the people's private information being leaked through an IT hacker. You wanted to dive into that a little bit more in terms of the economic side of that.
I did, because obviously Optus is one of the I think they're number 2 for the telcos in Australia.
Yep.
Like they're the second largest behind Telstra. Their share prices were worth quite substantial amounts of money. You'd think with the company, Slater and Gordon have already said they're looking at doing a class action for the potentially tens of million people who have had their private information stolen and sold on. So my thought was, because a family member of mine works at BHP, when they had the class action, they had to pay out like billions of dollars in fines and charges and all that sort of stuff. Their share prices took a massive hit. So I thought it'd be a great time to actually explain to people now, like when a company screws up massively like Optus has, and in one of the reports to someone,
or maybe they didn't, they're just something happened to them. I mean,
that's where the problem is, because it's actually reported the hack wasn't that sophisticated. They
Really?
left themselves open. They didn't take the correct measures. And this is what's reported. I don't know if it's true or not. So just to be clear, I'm not reporting new things. The hack was very easy, that a script monkey. So someone who just goes control V, control paste, and let's just brute force and something and see if we get in. That's what they've tried to do. And they've actually got in, and that's how they stole all the information. So what's happened is apparently Optus, very clear here, didn't take sufficient steps to make sure that people's information was correctly protected.
Yep.
And that's why Slater Gordon have jumped on board, because
that's
they're
what's
also
being
the
alleged,
company that's doing the class action against AMP,
Gotcha.
and they've done a few others. So when BHP got nailed, their share prices took a hit, like quite a substantial hit.
Sure.
So I want to talk to Derek, how dangerous for companies are class actions? What can actually cause a company to fall and be destroyed by a class action? Can a company actually be forced to go bankrupt from something like what's about to happen to Optus?
It really depends on how big the company is, really. And I think that's what you've got to look at. I mean, there are, for any small businesses, there's always a part of this kind of insurance that's available to protect their data, to ensure that they are protecting the privacy of their clients, et cetera, within a business. And it always depends. It's different for every business. You know, some businesses don't need to collect that. Certainly your restaurant around the corner is not going to be collecting all its clients' databases information. However, it may handle credit card information. And this sort of stuff often done through third parties. But anyway, there's insurances generally for this stuff for a business because of these hacks. Let's just remember who's done the wrong here. It's not Optus per se. It's the hacker that's done the wrong thing. Let's keep that in perspective. I think we got to keep that in mind. Yes, if somebody is getting that information, there is a responsibility to protect that information. But we've seen with WikiLeaks and all this sort of stuff, if a hacker is determined to get through, they find a way.
Yeah.
So I think we have to keep that in perspective in this whole context. It comes from me, the whole question is, well, how much should a company be required in terms of collecting information? Now, with the telcos, they have to collect more information than average businesses do because the government requires it.
Oh, really?
Yes.
A lot of reporting.
Yes.
Okay.
So, for instance, if you call 000, they know exactly where you are on a mobile phone, right? The government has that information. They go, bang, you're located here, to be able to get there. This ties into the whole Big Brother watching you type of scenario. But you've got to realize that the telcos are, by legislation, required to collect that kind of information. So, yes, they have more sensitive information than other businesses will. Will these class actions affect them? A lot of this comes down to, one, how good their insurance is, two, how good their lawyers are.
That's a bigger issue there.
Let's be real. But you would think that a company like this, they'll survive this without any it won't be, it could affect their profit lines at the end of the financial year, and probably more their reputation than anything else.
Right.
That's probably going to be the biggest dent.
I'm not going to ask for advice here. I'm not expecting it, but I would think that, I could probably see this as an opportunity. If the stock price drops, maybe someone like myself might buy some and sit on for a little while.
Certainly,
it's going to come back.
Certainly, traders look at those highs and lows and dips and go, "Is this cheap right now?" and that sort of thing. I'm not advocating that as financial advice. This is not what this show is about. But I think that I don't see them going under. They're a huge company, Travis.
A lot of people don't realize this. Optus isn't an Australian company, so they're actually owned by a Singaporean telco.
I did not know that. There you go.
So they're not actually Australian. So they've got offices here and all that sort of stuff, but their parent company is based in Singapore. Right. It is actually really, really big company. They were reported, I don't know if it was last year or year before, $776 million worth of profit. So that's after expenses. So
Okay.
the amount of revenue Optus as a whole is bringing towards this parent company is quite large. So considering when Apple intentionally bricked a whole heap of phones and got a $9 million fine when they made a couple of $1 billion worth of
$9 million. Is that the fine?
That was in Australia. They intentionally, due to a security breach, when people changed their phones out, they said, "Oh, it's no longer secure, so we don't brick your phone." And then they changed the coding inside the phone and on-sold the bricked phones for $350. They made millions from it. They got a $9 million fine. So considering Apple can get away with that, knowing what's happened with Optus, I can see maybe a $10 million fine, something like that, or with the class action, they might pay out. Let's say absolute best case scenario, like there's a $500 million payout for it. They're still going to be in the green. They're still going to be a profitable company. So personally, this is me. I don't think they don't go down.
The ripple effect of this is interesting because I'm getting a lot of emails from the bank and all this sort of stuff saying, protect your information. And of course, they're putting in measures to improve their security because who knows in terms of identity theft's a really big deal. I think Australians don't really appreciate how big it is. In the United States, where I originally come from, it is a big deal.
That's
right.
Yep.
Stealing someone's mail. People can do that to basically get information like what's your email, what's your phone number, what's your address, all that stuff. And when you start tying in with tax file numbers and those kind of
you can set up that identity and you can just accumulate so much debt.
Yeah. And so that's the big concern.
We had a very interesting comment come up. I'll just put it up on the screen. I think Phil might become our top fan shortly. So Optus uses Salesforce software linked to the WEF. And why was Gladys parachuted into the company?
Ooh.
We might have to cover that in the political show at 5 o'clock. The six-pack at 6, which is done at 5. I think we might have to do a bit of quick research.
Because Phil's asking such great questions, can he win one of the prizes today?
Do you know what? Lock it in. As far as hang on. I don't want it to sound like it's fixed because it's certainly not. But look, okay, you know what?
I don't know who Philip is. I've never met Philip.
Right now, we're giving away now 11 as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, one for Phil, definitely, because those questions are fantastic, mate. Really, really good stuff, and we appreciate them. So, yeah, look, let's lock him in for it.
Leave it for you, Travis, to get in touch with him.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's also put another comment down here. Hacker only asked for $1 million. Was it Dr. Evil?
$1 million. I'll take the hat off for a minute. Oh, dear.
You got the haircut for it.
I have got the haircut for it. I'm not going to take the hat off. Anyway, the point being is, look, great questions and keep them coming in. Yeah, I think that Phil obviously get a lot from the course, so that's a great prize. Cool.
It was actually a really enjoyable video to record and broadcast.
It really was, wasn't it?
So,
how to fund your life purpose using techniques that wealthy use. Philip, well done.
Well done, Philip. Yay!
I hope you enjoy that, Phil, and get a lot out of that. So, yeah, give some feedback if you want to. He's obviously a smart man.
Sounds that way, absolutely, yeah. Get him on the couch. Why not, right? Well, we should invite all of our
why don't we
invite one by one?
I still think we should just make an open invite to everyone, and we'll just get, set some chairs up, and like we can get the fake, like we'll get someone to hold a sign up to applause when I say a bad joke.
Sounds perfect. Absolutely. We've got a little bit of space here. We can put an audience in. Why not? Indeed, right?
I like to look at. So, but in the fallout with Optus, I don't think the company's going to go anywhere. I don't think it's actually going to affect much. I know of people who run servers in Perth who had in the last couple of weeks have had multiple attacks on their servers, and to the point where it actually got destroyed and they had to rebuild it from scratch.
Wow.
So the problem is I don't know if that's directly linked or not.
Okay.
So the problem is, this is where the big risk I can see coming from this one. So how many people these days now log into their internet banking and then they get a text message saying, we've had an access, please verify this code. And then you punch the code into the thing. So I'm not very familiar with the way the telco technology works. So if someone's able to get into Optus, are they able to hijack your phone numbers?
Well, I would say absolutely. Yeah.
That's where my concern is, because how many people these days now have two-factor authentications coming through to their mobile phone?
Yeah.
So if they've hacked your phone number, do they now have access to? Because if they're into all your details,
information unsafe? Yes.
So they would have your email address, residential address, mobile phone number, credit card details, expiry dates, passwords.
Insane.
And if they're Optus is the people doing your home internet, they could potentially also have your IP addresses for your computers. so they could actually find your computer in the World Wide Web.
It's terrifying. Big Brother is bloody terrifying.
So, in all honesty, if you are with Optus, I'd seriously consider changing all your passwords like immediately, and
I think it's a no-brainer.
potentially, depending on how much information were they actually done, because they could have left a tracker inside of the Optus systems where they can actually track things even after you change your passwords.
I think what's going to be interesting once they get past this is what are the implications for small, medium, and big enterprise as well. I mean, small, medium-sized enterprises don't have the funding to put in the big,
No, absolutely not.
infrastructure and IT teams to do all of that. And that is really hard to legislate from a political side. What do you do in that scenario? So it'll be interesting to see what moving forward, how this is going to have an impact on the further the other communities. I mean, you get a lot of accounting practices that aren't big business, that aren't high tech type of companies, but they hold a lot of sensitive information on their clients.
Just have a look at your local accountant.
I'm going to throw something out here that people don't know, but actually, Edge Radio Australia was actually hacked, right?
Oh, this is new. I didn't know that.
Quite a while ago, we had somebody get in there, and I actually know who it was, right? This particular person did have access to passwords and things like that, and did cause problems, and we had to change passwords and that kind of stuff. So, if it can happen to me, it can certainly happen to anyone. Don't think this is just going to be somebody else, right? We're trying to obviously create a network here of freedom and freedom of speech, and people try and cause traumas, and no one's immune to it. Each and every one of us is very, very vulnerable.
One thing, a lot of people, my mates would know this one. I did a video series when the lockdowns first started about the Wu flu and all that sort of stuff, and so it was going through a website. So I had a video website blog, so I used to write articles and all that sort of stuff, and so I did this series on how to make China pay for the economic losses that Australia receives, and it was a full 3-part series. And so I put it up on YouTube and everything, and the amount of hate I got in those comments were hilarious. And I found out this thing called the 50-cent army. So apparently the CCP actually pay people 50 cents for every negative comment they leave on anti-CCP videos.
Wow.
So we released the video. I questioned, it might be 25 cents, I can't remember. So I questioned this guy whether he was a part of the 25-cent army, and then within seconds, because we had our own email servers as well, we normally get about 10,000 login attempts. It's constant. They just run a script and they try every single IP address to try and get in. It's just something that happens. It went from 10,000 login attempts to over 100,000 login attempts in an hour.
Wow.
So a lot of this also, because they assume that it's a private hacker, there's nothing to say that this isn't a major organization like another country, because China got caught trying to get into the power network in the northern parts of Australia. That was 2 years ago, I think.
Wow.
There's multiple attacks that originate from China coming into Australia. The other country that does a lot as well is Russia.
Now, all of this talk about privacy and hacking and this and that comes back to something we were talking about a week or two ago, and that's keeping your money in a couple of different organizations, not sticking with one bank, literally, having different accounts in different organizations. I think that's a really smart play personally. That's something I'd recommend for everyone to do.
And having that flexibility that if something does go wrong, being able to switch from, say, for example, Optus to Telstra or Optus to Vodafone. The other thing you got to be careful of is, let's say you go from Optus to Boost. Well, isn't Boost Optus?
I don't really know.
So there's a whole heap of these small phone companies that are just piggybacking off Telstra.
I think they use the same
systems.
network. I don't believe they're the same organization.
But did the hack have access to the network as well? So is it just Optus clients that got hacked, or was it also the minor companies as well?
This may also play into some positive outcomes too. It may put into question, well, how much information do companies really need to collect? And when government legislates that this X amount of information should be done, is that making their citizens vulnerable to hackers like this and foreign influences? Because the role of government is to protect the people from other countries. So could it go that far? I think we've got to ask that.
Sorry, Phil's sending more messages.
Phil's busy. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to have a little break, boys, okay? Quick bit of music, and we'll be back really, really soon with EdgeRadioAustralia.com.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3,
It's a matter of trust.
Some love is just a lie of the heart. The core remains of what began with a passionate start, and they may not want it to end, but it will. It's just a question of when. I've lived long enough to have learned, the closer you get to the fire, the more you get burned. But that won't happen to us, 'cause it's always been a matter of trust. Now I know you're an emotional girl. It took a lot for you to not lose your faith in this world. But I can't offer you proof, but you're gonna face a moment of truth. It's hard when you're always afraid. You just recover when another belief is betrayed. So break my heart if you must. It's a matter of trust. You can't go the distance with too much resistance. I know you have doubts, but for God's sake, don't shut me out. This time you got nothing to lose. You can take it, you can leave it, whatever you choose. I won't hold back anything, and I'll walk away a fool or a king. Some love is just a lie of the mind. It's make believe until it's only a matter of time. And some might have learned to adjust, but it never was a matter of trust. I'm sure you're aware now, we both had our share of believing too long, when the whole situation was wrong. Some love is just a lie of the soul, a constant battle for the ultimate state of control. After you've heard lie upon lie, there can hardly be a question of why. Some love is just a lie of the heart. The core remains the one began with a passionate start. But that can't happen to us, 'cause it's always been a matter of trust. It's a matter of trust. It's always been a matter of trust. It's a matter of trust. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Think you see what I'm doing? Monday's experts, they always know what's best, always tell you what you should have done. Monday's experts, they always know what's cooking, how the game was lost and how it could have been won. When Monday comes around, everyone's an expert in my town. Monday's experts. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Monday's experts. Yeah, yeah. Well, I see them up the shops, I see them down the street. When I go up the pub, it's nearly everyone I meet saying I should have done this or I should have done that. By the time they finish talking, well, my beers are getting flat. When Monday comes around, everyone's an expert in my town. When Monday comes on by. Everyone's an expert to this guy. Well, Tuesday, Wednesday, out of mind. Thursday, Friday, talking blind. Saturday, Sunday, not so bad. Monday comes, it drives me mad. Monday's experts. Talking in the tea room, in the workshop, in the office, talking all around the place. Monday's experts. Hey, they've always got the good oil. Pity you can't put a bet on at the finish of a race. When Monday comes around, everyone's an expert in my town. When Monday comes on by, everyone's an expert to this guy. When Monday comes around, everyone's an expert on my song. Monday's experts. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Monday's experts. We'll see what I mean. Monday's experts. Yeah, yeah. Monday's experts.
It's edgeradioaustralia.com. You're with Travis Carter over there, Derek Whittaker there, Aaron Malloy right here. We are doing a little show that we like to call A Greater Wealth. And then we just got silence.
Last year, we were hearing a lot in the United States about the Great Resignation. Do you remember hearing?
I heard stories.
So for those who don't know what the Great Resignation was, it was a lot of people reconsidering what they want to do with their lives. And in lockdown, they were kind of going, not sure that I want to keep working where I've been working with all the stress, and why am I doing what I'm doing? So they had a mass resignation, many people quitting their jobs and looking for better things that they wanted to were more fulfilling for them in life.
Almost like they were looking for their greater purpose, mate.
Exactly. Australia has been a little delayed on the uptake of that.
Yeah.
The Paladin Group, I think it was a Paladin Group, did a studies that found out 80% of people hated their job.
No,
What
you're
group
getting
was that?
confused with the Australian Institute of Management in 2016. Discovered that.
Yes.
Paladin Group did a what is the cost of unemployment to the community?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
I think,
that hasn't been published yet. I don't think.
okay, because I know there's a lot of people, because they were locked down, there's only so many computer games and Netflix you can watch during like 2 years.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are like, you know what do I enjoy? What can I do? And they found out, because they couldn't work, that Australia is such a generous country when it comes to welfare payments and preventing people from going homeless.
Sure.
That they realize, you know what? If I get rid of all my subscriptions, I stop buying smashed avocado on toast for $25 for breakfast and $27 lattes and all this sort of crap that a lot of people buy these days. Once they realize you cut all that shit out, and let's call it what it is, shit.
Right.
You don't need it. Once you cut all of that out of your life, you don't actually need a lot of money to survive.
No.
And so a lot of people going, you know what? I'll use the government's money to pay for me to build my company or build my business, build my dream. And once it starts getting money in, I stop getting the welfare payments, and then I can go from there. But let's be honest, if you want to start a new business in Australia, there's not a lot of risk.
I don't agree with that. I think there's an awful lot of risk, but okay.
As long as you control your expenses, there's nothing to stop you from starting a business in Australia.
Well, it depends on how you define risk. Australia is one of the most litigious nations in the world.
Obviously, if you do the wrong thing, you get sued by someone.
Sure.
Like if you're just starting, let's say you want to hawk stuff on eBay. Like you buy it off Amazon, you sell it on eBay, you make a bit of a profit in the middle.
Sure.
What's to stop you from doing that?
Oh, look, not a lot, quite frankly.
Quit your job, jump onto the welfare payments and start doing it. And once you start getting enough income coming through.
I know. I mean, look, personally, I'd rather, use this platform to encourage people to better themselves, right?
So,
to use the tools that we're talking about, get educated.
Yep.
And because I'm not all about money, right? Okay. I think we've covered that. Okay. I've got, some purpose that I want to, I want to achieve and things I want to build, right? But it costs money to do these things. You can't do it without money. And certainly if you were just sitting on the old dole, you couldn't achieve that. So I would rather spend my efforts encouraging people to go, start a small business and get busy.
But the point I'm making, especially in Australia, losing your job isn't the end of the world.
No, okay, good.
It's
point
a
on
lot
that,
of
for sure.
people, it's a kick up the ass that they need to actually take that leap of faith to actually start the business they've always wanted to do.
Mhm.
And the biggest problem I find in Australia is not so much that there's not the support there for it, the education on what to look out for, how to do it, how to structure yourself properly is,
For sure.
severely lacking, especially through our education system.
Mhm.
So having courses like we did on the weekend, the Living Your Life Purposes, using the techniques that the rich and famous use.
How to, well, not maybe
How to
necessarily
fund it.
famous, but
Yeah.
the wealthy.
I hear
How-
stories. I do, Derek. I really do.
So that's why courses like what Derek's been doing, especially Blue Sky Factory, have been so crucial.
Brilliant.
Because I can tell you now, the whole time I was at school, not once did they tell me about proper accounting. Not once
No.
did I get taught about the different tax systems that we have in Australia. I didn't even know that standard people could make a foundation.
Well, hang on. Look, I don't know about you, but I use algebra every day. You know? No, I wish I'd learned.
I thought it was
trig,
you were
know?
allergic to a bra.
You know that AE equals X squared plus BC. You
Of
know
course
that?
it does. Yeah, absolutely. And that changed my life. I would have rather have learned how to do my taxes, how to set up a company, you know, and actually, you know, how to effectively, you know,
How to do a BAS statement.
a BAS statement.
How
would
to
have
make a
been handy.
buck.
Yeah.
Like
Instead, we were, you know, adding, you know, letters together and other
putting
absolutely
little numbers
useless
above
things.
them and making it change its shape.
Crazy, absolutely crazy.
So-
So, all right. Well,
And who's ever used the cosine signal?
Speaking of numbers,
Numbers.
this is what gets me.
you know,
Allianz Australia has just released a report and says that in the next 6 to 12 months, it's estimated 2 million Australians will quit their jobs, resign.
whoa, 2 million.
Yeah.
Okay, so of the workforce, we're going to, I don't know how big the workforce. So we've got what, 27 million, 27 million we've established.
Not all
in-
of them are working.
Exactly right.
In
Yeah, so
WA, to
cutting
give
that
you an
back,
idea,
yeah.
the legal voters, there was
Mhm.
only about 1.7 million.
Right. Okay. But if we take the population who could actually work and that sort of thing,
Yep.
that is a massive,
It's a huge
massive
amount.
percentage.
It's a huge
Absolutely
amount.
huge.
And it's really going to be interesting for workplaces because it
Yeah.
costs. I quoted their number the other day in the presentation. I forget the exact figure, but it's somewhere in the vicinity. If you're one of the 10 who get into the competition, you'll have the exact number.
11 now.
But it's somewhere between $16,000 to $18,000 to
Yeah.
re-employ someone for a
Yeah,
business.
crazy. Absolutely.
Just to go through the process of advertising for that position, defining who
Yep.
they want, going through the interview process, and then training them for the job.
So
It's huge.
we have 1 minute and 45 seconds to tell everybody how they can enter this competition. And I'm going to throw it over to Travis, and then I'll
Why
give
do you
it,
keep dumping to
because
me?
I'll tell you why, because then I'll give it to Derek to clean up your mess. Go.
Okay. Like, share the platform that you are on. So
Yes.
if you're like Phil watching on YouTube, subscribe to Edge Radio Australia.
Yep.
Is it Edge Radio or
Edge Entertainment Australia. Yep.
He's actually watching it through my YouTube channel, so I got
There
to
you
put
go.
a link. There's a link in the description to the Facebook page as well.
Yep.
If you're watching on Facebook, obviously follow the Facebook page.
sure.
If you're watching on Twitch, then that's mine as well. So you got to make an Edge Australia Twitch account, Aaron.
Okay.
Like Twitch is fun.
Oh, I don't know.
You know what we should do? We should have a gaming show. Anyway, so subscribe and also make sure you chuck a comment down saying how handsome Aaron is. And the best comment will also win.
Oh,
I
okay.
made that up on the spot, by the
Yeah,
way.
why not throw that in as well? And again, Derek, can you just clean up what he just said?
So the first 10 people to do that will also go and get an exposure to this course, which we were charging $47 for, on how to fund your life purpose and fund it using techniques the wealthy use. So
Yes.
it's an in-depth study on what they're doing differently that the rest of the population aren't, and there's little nuggets in there that I think can really just kind of shift the way you think in terms of how you perceive things and go, oh, okay, is that how that's done? Oh, okay.
When it's presented and it's put in front of you in a way that's it's clear, it's concise, and it relates to your life, it just
And the best thing I
life-changing.
found about this show is I've done a couple of these courses myself, and a lot of the time they use a lot of jargon. There wasn't much jargon in it. It was
well, here's
very,
some jargon. End of the show.
simple.
Thanks, guys. Catch you later. We hope you've had fun. Yeah, our time is over. We're throwing ourselves out of the studio, but we'll be back about 5 for the 6-pack at 5-ish. Thank you both, gentlemen, for everything today. And we'll see you very, very soon for more of The Greater Wealth here on Edge Entertainment, Edge Radio Australia.
Got your rhymes going round in my head. Got you supersonic beats mixing up my kids. So dance, little DJ, come on. What's your